because the Supreme Court in a unanimous verdict has announced that the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners be done on the same lines as the appointment of the CBI Director, which essentially means that there must be members of the opposition, there must be somebody from the Supreme Court who will be there when the CEC is appointed. This is to make the EC more independent and to ensure that there is no interference in the functioning of the Election Commission. This is a very significant order because for a long time, and with no disrespect to past election commissioners, governments have attempted to bring people they were comfortable with. With a CBI director, it's not quite as easy. While of course they'll still try to bring somebody they're comfortable with, but you now have a member of the Supreme Court, judge from the Supreme Court, you have an opposition leader there as well. So that complicates things. That's a big order.
Very interesting because, you know, the Election Commission has come under the scanner in recent months, particularly the manner in which the appointments have been made and some of the decisions taken by the EC. So clearly the court stepping in. You know, we might as well hand over this country to the Supreme Court. They're deciding everything from whether SEBI should be investigated, whether who appoints election commissioners. I mean, as long as...
No, but this is a good order. You should compliment the Supreme Court for coming up with this order.
No, but
the fact that there will be
now
a leader of the opposition, the Chief Justice of India, and the PM in a panel appointing the ECs and the CEC. It's a landmark order. You know, but this is really the biggest thing that's happened since the morning.
If you remember, there was earlier the whole notion of a multi-member election commission that came in after it was felt don't give all the powers to one. When TN Session was there, eventually it became multi-member. Now, what does this suggest though, Rahul? It suggests somewhere that even the court has no faith in the in the EC's neutrality and is suggesting that the executive is appointing its people. Why else is this order? So it is in a way putting a check or a balance on what is seen otherwise to be an executive that is completely unchanged.
I have a very practical question.
No, it's a good thing, but what does it say about our executive? A SEBI order, the Election Commission order. Somewhere you do not have faith that the government of the day will ensure that SEBI acts independently, hence you are putting an expert committee. The government of the day will not appoint election commissioners in a bipartisan neutral manner. You are saying have a leader of the opposition. I mean, the fact is that you are sending out a message the executive of the day is being checked constantly by the judiciary. Good.
Thank God for that.
Thank God for that. But the executive will it appreciate what it means.
No, but there's no option now. The opposition is there.
I have a practical question, Rahul. Yes. You said it's a landmark judgment. Of course it is. But do you think CBI is independent? Means the mechanism that...
But CBI is much more professional than many other investigative agencies.
But eventually the government can use the CBI the way it has been using, because we have seen cases, most of the time the opposition keeps talking about this.
Supriya of the Congress is with us. Supriya, bear with me for a moment. The story is just broken, so I come to you in a moment. Anisha, give us details. This massive, big breaking story coming from the Supreme Court. Now the ECs will be appointed in a manner very different from what we've seen so far.
Well, yes, Rahul, we've seen this very, very big judgment coming in from the Supreme Court, where the unanimous verdict from the 5 judges bench, and my colleague Kanu was inside the court where this judgment has been done, and Kanu will be able to tell us the details of the exact judgment, because the court has very clearly said that the appointment of CEC has to be done on the same line as Director CBI, with the Chief Justice of India, the Leader of Opposition and the PM representative all on the panel. Kanu, what else has the court said?
The court has taken the line that for independent election commission, we need to have a independent panel which will, until the law is framed on this, we will have a similar selection panel which selects the CBI.
And so, Rahul, clearly the court is saying that the format that is being followed at this moment is not enough, that there needs to be a law properly created to ensure independence of the Election Commission, because remember, this set of petitions had not just called upon the court to look into appointment of the CECs, they had also said that the independence of the Election Commission itself is under question, and that was a big point that had been raised in these petitions that were heard before a 5-judge bench, and the court has very clearly said that till a clear law is passed by the Parliament to formulate an independent election commission appointment system, till then the same format as the CBI director's appointment has to be followed. Now,
have you heard from any of the government lawyers on this? What was the government's case while the hearing was on? Because this is something which obviously no government will like.
Well, Rahul, during the hearing, the government had been continually saying that the Election Commission is independent, that there is a 1991 law which says that, which has said, Tanu will be able to explain this exactly.
Under the 1991 Act, the present Act says that the 6 years tenure should be there for any election commissioner to be appointed as the chief election commissioner. But we have seen in the arguments made by the centre that there are hardly any people who have reached this election commission and stayed there for 6 years. There are barely 2 examples which are being, said by Attorney General during the hearing. But this was actually a point of trigger for the court to interfere and set the panel today.
And Rahul, if you see the observations that have been made, this is a very clear and very scathing observation that has been made, that any process that seeks to improve the election process before this court must be considered. Once results are out, matter largely becomes a fait accompli, that power becomes goal of political parties. What is disturbing and the substance of the complaints of the petitioner is the sullying of the process of gaining power, and democracy can succeed only as all stakeholders work on it to maintain the purity of the election process. Scathing comments coming in from the Supreme Court about the election process, about the purity, about needing a rule of law and a promise of avoidance of nepotism in this particular matter. They've also looked into the nota option, which says that, and they've observed that this shows the electorate's dissatisfaction with the process that is going on with the candidates right now. The qualities of competence has been flagged by the court, that there has to be qualities of competence and independence in the election commission, that in the EC has to be independent and cannot claim to be independent but act in an unfair manner, and that is a very, very clear statement coming in from the Supreme Court.